in order to pay homage to what the character can do in the comics, we need a little bit of help. There's a little peppering of superhumanness. You know, if you love these characters, it does get your juices running a little bit. It's exciting. And that ingredient is so cool.
It's so cool, yeah.
It's so cool.
Hey, I want
First, let's get a Daredevil Born Again 3D model from the internet. It shouldn't be hard to find.
Wait.
Fine, whatever, I can make him real quick. Making the model required some work, but I took some shortcuts along the way. Take a look at the guy. Look at all this detail that I made. The seams, the wrinkles. All of this was made through
My ears burn!
None of this detail is from actual model geometry. It's from something called a normal map. If you don't know what normals are, they're essentially shades of colors that correspond to a direction in 3D space. Softwares like Blender uses data to create things like lighting, and with normal maps, you're allowed to manipulate it, allowing me to sculpt a high poly model, take the normal data, and transfer it over to a low poly model for optimization. And in this case, so it's actually usable. Also, huge shout out to Vec3D for the helmet model. It was a huge help. Hope you processed all that. Now it's time for... I really wanted to capture that fantastical sense of flight that's present in the comic panels that Daredevil is in. Teetering on the edge of superhuman, but real enough to suspend your disbelief that a human being could do that. I don't want to animate for this project though, as unfortunately I don't have the time for it. So my buddy Toxic Animations picked up the animation instead, and he did incredible.
Okay, so the first step that I had to do was to get the model provided by Nero into Blender. And then my next step was to combat the FPS problem by going to the outliner and turning a few things off so that Blender could run more smoothly and that the playback was accurate. My next step was to set up a city that was kindly provided by Nero, and then figure out whereabouts I'm going to place Daredevil in the scene so that it matched up accurately to the storyboard that Nero created. The next step was to add a camera and start animation. Throughout this entire animation, I had to use a mixture of IK and FK, and to do this, I used an IK-FK switcher, and this meant that during scenes where Daredevil had to make contact with things like the water tower and a flip, I would just switch it to IK once he made contact like this. For the swinging scenes, I had to make sure that the physics was correct, so I used my prior experience doing Spider-Man animations in order to complete this. This meant that the arc that Daredevil travels on had to be accurate in order for the animation to look as good as possible.
While Toxic was animating, Captain Roxas was working on the music.
Oh!
What is wrong? What are you doing?
The city streets were put together with the CityGen add-on by Cinematic Cookie. Every shot was lit independently to look its best, but consistent enough as to not be distracting. Compositing was a little more work than anticipated. I had to fix this weird render issue where the cars disappeared for 2 frames and where these buildings kept flickering. So I just tracked the elements for both shots, took a still from where it wasn't doing that, and tracked it in. After that, it was just some color grading, the radar sense, and some chromatic aberration. And of course, smoke puffs. For production crate, please sponsor me, please! With all that done, me and Toxic then worked together in the sound design, and here's the final product. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed that. And thank you for the support for these past few videos. I love making these things for you guys, so comment down below any suggestions for future projects and I'll keep them in mind to work on. However, I will be taking a semi-hiatus for the next 2 years. Long story short, I have to go do mandatory army service since I live in Singapore, so content won't be as prevalent. I'll still be probably posting a few renders on my socials, so be sure to follow those here. Thank you for watching.